One of the first responsibilities that we have are to take final actions related to the close of a prior fiscal year, in this case fiscal year 13, which ended on June 30. We follow the statutory procedures for the disposition of the year-end balances. Those disposition of the year-end balances are basically governed by two sections of law, one that establishes the Budget Stabilization Fund and the other that has a general rule for how to deal with surplus revenues at the end of the state fiscal year. Today I'm very pleased that the governor is here at OBM to participate in the statutory transfer of the FY13 surplus into the Budget Stabilization Fund or the Rainy Day Fund. This is the third time in 3 years of the Kasich administration that we've been able to make such a transfer. This is a tribute to the governor's budget leadership, to his insistence on conservative fiscal management practices, including the use of conservative economic forecasts and revenue estimates, his insistence on a careful review of state government operations, a careful look at state government programs, insisting on economy and efficiency and program improvement opportunities at every turn. I'm especially pleased that the governor is with us at OBM today because it recognizes the importance of the staff of the Office of Budget Management in executing the budget agenda that the governor has put forth. You know, the governor was good enough on July 1st to ask many of the important participants in the budget process to come out to the residence, where he gave a heartfelt thank you for all the work that they have done. And many of the OBM budget staff were at that meeting, and I appreciate him coming back again to recognize the important work that they do. And before we execute this BSF transfer, and before I turn it over to the governor, I just want to talk a little bit about the Budget Stabilization Fund. The Budget Stabilization Fund was enacted into law in 1981. However, the first deposit was not made until 1985. The Budget Stabilization Fund, or the Rainy Day Fund, serves as an important reserve balance that's set aside in good economic times to provide the state with a cushion to protect Ohioans in the event of an unexpected economic or budgetary condition. And the Budget Stabilization Fund is not just for the benefit of state government. You know, more than 85% of the state general revenue fund is distributed to schools, local governments, and other entities to support programs that serve Ohioans in their communities. And so in the fact that we have a budget stabilization fund that is full target provides a measure of protection for all the programs that the state supports throughout the state of Ohio. And I tell you, the fact that we have this cushion, which will enable us to manage any uncertainties that might come up in the next 2 years, puts us in a very good position to perhaps forestall or reduce any mid-budget actions that we would have to take in the event of unforeseen circumstances. So with that, I'm ready to turn it over to the governor and have him say a few words before we execute the transaction.
Well, again, I want to thank the staff. The reason why I can relate to the staff and the many hours that you put in getting home at 11, 12, do I hear one? I know what it's like. You know, I actually wrote my first budget when I was a member of the Ohio Senate. At that time, the Republicans wanted to raise taxes, and I had promised that we shouldn't. And I had to find, I think at the time, a grand total of $400 million to plug the budget hole. And it was interesting because when I said I was going to write my own budget to close that hole, I had people from this organization sneaking over to my office in the dead of night to tell me places where I should look to figure out how to plug that hole. And so I was very involved with staff and with people from your operation, Tim, in terms of that first $400 million. Then I offered my first budget, complete budget for the United States in 1989, and had very limited staff and had to work very closely with them. And then, you know, when we talk about what's achieved today, and I want to recognize Ron Almstutz and also Senator Olschlager, when we talk about what's happened here, this is very interesting, because the reason why we're here is, one, we've managed the government effectively. Medicaid grew at, I think I could say, maybe I could be proven wrong, at the lowest rate of any state in America without slashing benefits or taking people off the rolls. It's been good management. It's been done by using computers and paying accurately. It's been done by the changes that we made in the way which we deliver home health care. It's been pretty remarkable. And the credit goes to Greg Moody, John McCarthy, and all their staff, and the ability to get cooperation from all areas of state government to be able to control the growth in that program. It's been fantastic. That's been the bulk of the savings. And at the same time, of course, we've had significant improvement in our economy. Last month, I think, as we all know, I think all these numbers are subject to change, but at least at this point, we created more jobs in Ohio than any other state in America. And we're now up to 170,000 private sector jobs created in the last couple years, which is just fantastic. So when you're growing, when you have a growth going on, combined with restraint in government, you end up with surpluses. Back in the 90s, when I served as budget chairman and entered into negotiations with Senator Domenici and members of the Clinton administration, there was an effort at that time from the Clinton administration to try to create a GDP growth that was not realistic. Why does that matter? Well, when you say your economy is going to grow faster than you know that it's going to grow, then you don't have to make changes in the government because you're anticipating more revenue. So I've always operated on the basis of exactly how I operate personally within my own family, and it's a conservative nature to make sure that we don't get ourselves out on a limb, that we don't find ourselves in a position of where we have to make bad choices or get ourselves under the thumb of anybody. So in this budget, working very closely with a great budget director and a great friend of mine, Tim Keene, I have insisted, and Chris Whistler, by the way, who plays a critical role, I've insisted that we use conservative economics. We don't want to be creating some rosy scenario of how we could get there. We needed to make sure we did it right, because the last thing we need is more cynicism and more questions about people that are not leveling with the public. I don't think the public really knows about this. I think it has been lost in whatever side issues. The public, if they can find out about this, will be thrilled. I mean, we had 89 cents in that rainy day fund, and I want to tell the press, I'm sorry I have to keep repeating this, but you have to keep repeating things, particularly when there's good results. And we've now gone from 89 cents to actually over $2 billion in surplus. Now, we are required to, or our limit in the rainy day fund is 5% of the budget, which puts us at approximately $1.5 billion. This will be the largest amount of money in a rainy day fund, in our surplus fund, in the history of Ohio. And it will be the first time in a decade that we've actually filled this fund. What does this mean? It really means that we do have this space. It means that in the middle of a year, when the legislature at times has been forced to cut programs, affect the schools, bring real uncertainty and confusion and chaos, we now have the money in this operation to stabilize the operations of the state of Ohio, which should really result in our local communities and our school systems being have much more confidence about the future. It is just fantastic. So we also are going to use some of the overage of this rainy day fund to do some very important things, which is to make sure we're adequately prepared for emergencies. As you know, we just went through a very volatile weather situation, and we've been through that over the last 2.5 years, and these things cost money, and it is great to be able to fill that a bucket of emergency operations so that we can be in a position to pay for those, and of course having to pay the interest on the unemployment comp is another one of the costs. But in addition to that, about half of this overage that we have in the surplus fund will go to jumpstart our tax cuts. I cannot stress how important these tax cuts are. We will now see an income tax down to about 5.3%. It's not good enough, but it's absolutely in the right direction. And I have a commitment from the leaders to continue on tax reform to bring those numbers down. Let me just explain to you that I speak to a lot of CEOs, and they want to know about the regulatory environment. They want to know about the tax environment. They want to know about the education of our children. They want to know about the general attitude of the government vis-a-vis their business operations when they make an investment. These tax cuts will not only spur economic growth. The small business tax cut is unique, I think, in the country. Other states will look at this. And lowering that income tax, those marginal rates, and including creating an earned income tax credit, is going to have a very positive effect upon the economy in the state and give me another tool in the toolbox of selling Ohio. Because all of you that are here today, I am very confident that if we keep moving in the right direction, Ohio can become the best state. And to be able to tell people that we went from an $8 billion hole to $1.5 billion surplus, and to have tax cuts for small business and for individuals, when they look at Washington and so many other states that have failed to deliver this, they want to know why it's happening. And frankly, so does the national press. They're just in here for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days. Am I right, Lynch? I mean, just in here studying Ohio. Today I'm going to do a television today with Neil Cavuto talking about Ohio. Various publications talking about Ohio. It's it's the Ohio comeback. And in many ways, it's an Ohio miracle to go from $8 billion to now this kind of a surplus. This happens because of the great stewardship of the people who work for you, too, Tim. I cannot discount their hard work. I deeply appreciate the fact that you spend time here when you could have more time with your family, more time for leisure, getting the job done. Now, Tim's going to drive you hard. I want you to rest. Okay, I want you to take some time off and recharge, because we have a number of additional items that we are in the early stages that we're working on to continue to move the state forward. We're not going to rest. I was saying to Tim, how's Chris Whistler's attitude? He says it's great because he wants to be part of change, and we have to continue to deliver that change in exciting ways. So don't think we're just going to rest and slide. We're going to be even more aggressive in order to keep moving Ohio where we want it to go. So 89 cents to $1.5 billion, protection against disruptions, which can always come, the creation of jobs, leading the nation, job growth, transforming Medicaid. All these things are adding up to, and working with our partners in the legislature, it's really, really good news. And many of the times, what I've been finding is they do surveys, and a lot of people who are in the media think the public feeds off the negative. Sometimes the public needs a nice little appetizer or a nice little dessert that is involved in the positive. And this is fantastic news for every single Ohio family. Every single Ohioan should be proud of what has been accomplished today. So, Tim, on with the show. And you can give me some polite applause. Okay.
Governor, and now to the execution of the transfer from the General Revenue Fund to the Budget Stabilization Fund. I will sign a memo which authorizes us to make this transfer.
Is this Jim Kennedy?
Jim Kennedy.
Or is that Troy Aikman?
That is Jim Kennedy, who looks like Troy Aikman. So...
Come on, Bort. You know Troy Aikman is. You're the only one there that knows. Doesn't he look a little like Troy Aikman?
So I will introduce Jim, and he will walk us through the execution of this transaction that we are about to undertake. When I say we, I mean Delana Hunter from the State Accounting Section. So, Jim, I'll present you with this memo, and
how about Delana? Tell us what she does.
Delana is in the State Accounting Section, and she is responsible for entering a lot of the transactions that that we record into the state accounting system, and Delana sees a lot of these memos from me to Jim that outline transfers that I am authorized to make through the budget bill or through permanent law. And so with that, I'll have Jim talk a little bit about what we're about to see.
Thank you, Director. What the Director just signed was an authorization which allows state accounting to then make a transfer, which we call a cash transfer. And Delana Hunter will actually be executing this transfer, and we're going to try to do it live and see how this goes.